Hi friends, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today I'm going to be showing you Cracked Polish's new page turner collection. This is a set of 6 rich narrative driven polishes in a range of shades and finishes, perfect for fall, and I'm so excited to show them to you. I will save more of my thoughts for the end though, as well as some details about Cracked Polish's first anniversary sale. But for now, let's just get into the swatches. So the first one we have is Gilded Edges, and this one is described as a golden yellow with pink to green to gold shifting shimmers. Obviously you can see the gold shimmer head on, so it's a very yellowy gold leaning color. In extreme angles, I think you can see more of that green shimmer. The pink is a little harder to spot, but it's like a very fine dusting of shimmer that's kind of throughout. So you really only see little twinkles of it when you're looking at it really closely. But all that being said, I still really enjoyed this one. I feel like specialty yellow finishes have been just really weird for me the past couple of months where I just haven't been loving them. But this one I think is just so beautiful. It had a really great formula, just a little bit sheer, so you are still going to see some nail line even with doing 3 coats as seen here, but I still really enjoyed it. The next shade we have is Leather Bound, and this one is a dark mahogany metallic with a slight green to gold shift. So personally, I wouldn't call this one a metallic. It just doesn't really have that sort of finish for me. I think this is a very true like multi-chrome. I guess I could see it leaning a little bit pearlescent too, just with the particular finish where the shimmer is very densely packed and you kind of see some brush strokes, but it's not super streaky like a traditional pearl. This one did have a really nice formula. It was just a little bit more sheer on the first coat, and I guess maybe that's why I don't consider it a metallic, because for me metallics are almost always like one coaters. But either way, however you describe it, this one was just so beautiful. It is just so warm, so rich, really perfect for fall, and here it is in more indirect lighting so you can see that shift to yellow. You do see a hint of green, but it's in more extreme lighting. The next shade in the collection is Reed. No, I'm kidding. Obviously, this is red, and this is described as a dark Merlot cream. So personally, I would say that this one has a little bit of a crelly kind of formula, which I feel like is very typical for very dark, vampy reds like this. I find that they're rarely opaque in one coat. They have a little bit of a juicy, almost translucent kind of effect, but they're pretty much 2 coaters, and I would say that the same is true for this shade, where at least for me, I found it opaque enough in 2 coats. I think if you look close enough, you can make out a little bit of nail line, but if my nails were shorter, I think I could just easily get away with 2 coats. So yeah, this one was gorgeous. I love a vampy red for fall. Next we have Vintage Lampshade, and this one's described as a rich pine green with a slight blue to purple shift, which you might see in the edges of the bottle. So I would say that this is another multi-chrome kind of formula that has a little bit of a pearlescent kind of effect similar to Leather Bound. This one did have a fantastic formula too, where as you can see, it is very even coverage, not exactly opaque on the first coat though. There is like a bit of sheerness, so in certain lighting you can still see my nail line, but I personally found it pretty covered up on 2 coats. I think if you look close enough and maybe, you know, depending on the lighting, you might see a hint of it, but it just doesn't warrant a 3rd coat in my opinion. Obviously, that's just personal preference. So this one was super gorgeous. I just love that bright green shimmer, and I especially loved how the shimmer shifted to this teal and then purple color in more extreme lighting. You guys know I'm not the biggest fan of multi-chromes, but this one is really cool. The next shade in the collection is A Quiet Corner, and this one's described as a deep lapis blue with gold and holographic micro glitters. I'll be honest, in the bottle, this one didn't really interest me too much, but after applying it, I was just so blown away. This one had the best formula out of the collection, where I would say it's like nearly opaque in 1 coat. I think if your nails are shorter, and again, maybe depending on your application, you could get away with this in 1 coat just just because of how dark it is. It was just highly pigmented, but still super smooth and easy to apply. I love that bright blue shimmer. It just looks so stunning, especially in contrast with that tiny hollow sparkle. I think I would recommend using a glitter grabber for this though, just because of how packed it is with those little micro glitters. It's not going to be super difficult to remove, just a little messy. And rounding out the collection, we have Bookmarks The Spot, which is described as a penny orange with matching copper magnetic shimmer. So I didn't realize this was a magnetic at first, so apologies for that, but I will be showing it magnetized at the end. For now, you're just going to be seeing me apply this as is, straight out of the bottle. And this I would consider to be almost a metallic kind of finish. You can see it has incredible coverage on the first coat. I did find this one to be a little thicker, which probably helped with the opacity, but it was still smooth and easy to work with. And I forgot to include the clip of the application of the second coat, but this is what it looks like. I would say it's nearly fully opaque. So once I remembered that this was a magnetic, I wanted to show you how I do my velvet nails, because I just find this to be a super easy way where you just hold the magnet on the side while you paint your first coat, and then once you finish painting, you just pull the magnet away from your nail, and that usually is enough to kind of get the velvet effect, but you can also hit it from the other side to add a little bit more dimension as well. And I think you can tell that it has a velvet effect, but it's a little subtle compared to some other polishes. Again, I think it's because this one was a little bit thicker. It looks so gorgeous with a cat eye though. I feel like it reminds me of tiger's eye. So here is most of the collection worn as a skittle in 2 coats in direct sunlight. As you can see, the coverage is really great on these, where I would say they're almost all fully opaque, maybe with the exception of Gilded Edges, which is not a surprise considering it is a shimmery kind of yellow. So again, you might want to do a 3rd coat, especially if your nails are longer, but I think the nail line is just really minimal with that shade because of how intense the shimmer is. Even in low light, the shimmer is really glowy, and I feel like it just diffuses the look of your nail line. So I don't know what happened to the clip of my right hand, but I was wearing another skittle that included leather bound on my pinky, so hopefully you can see how that compares next to Bookmarks The Spot, which at first I thought was kind of brown, but you can see it's very orangey copper. So moving on to comparisons, we're starting with Gilded Edges, and the first polish I wanted to show this next to was Crop Dusted, which was from the, I think, very second collection that Cracked released last year. It's another shimmery kind of mid-tone yellow, and it looks pretty similar in the bottle, but you can see on the nail these are definitely very different and far from dupes. If you're a fan of more subtle shimmer, I would go with Crop Dusted. Then for Leatherbound, I knew I had to see this next to Mooncat's Dark Horse because it's the only other dark brown metallic, or multi-chrome rather. I thought these were going to be a lot more different, but seeing them in the bottle and also side by side on the nail, they are incredibly similar. I feel like there's just a minute difference in them where they're not exact dupes, but for all intents and purposes, I think I would call these dupes. The main difference is their formulas, where Mooncat's was more opaque. It was almost fully opaque in 1 coat, and Cracked was more sheer where it needs 2, but I think Dark Horse is a little bit darker. Moving on to red, I of course have to show this next to Holo Taco's Devil's Advocate, which just recently came out in the Dark Academia collection. It's another super dark, vampy, crelly red, but that one's a little too dark, so I thought for a little bit lighter, I could show Cirque's Empire State of Mind, which is, believe it or not, a smidge lighter than Devil's Advocate, but once on the nail, it looks a lot more similar than to Crack's red. I feel like that one just is a bit brighter, but I still would consider it a vampy red. Then for Vintage Lampshade, I wanted to show this next to Crack's Fight, which just came out recently. This is a super dark teal base that has a green shimmer that shifts to teal, so I thought that they kind of had a similar vibe going on, but I feel like you can definitely tell these two apart, where they're definitely in the same kind of color family, but just with very different finishes. So I really had to sneak in this comparison for Fight because I didn't include it in my initial review video, but I remember remembered that I had Bee's Knees lacquer beneath the Erdtree, which was a previous PPU shade that on paper is definitely the same as Fight, where it's a really dark teal base with this green to teal shifting shimmer. They're not exact dupes though, but I would say that Fight is a really great alternative if you missed out on this Bee's Knees. Then for a quiet corner, I was immediately reminded of ILNP's Nocturnal, which was from one of their Halloween collections a couple of years ago. It's missing that golden micro glitter, but I feel like the blue shimmer was definitely spot on, so I decided to use Cracked Polish's Truly Outrageous, which is a golden micro glitter, over the ILNP shade to try and recreate a quiet corner. And it has a similar vibe, but it's not exactly there. The ILNP has more of a true black base as opposed to blue, so you can see it's a lot darker, but the shimmer is also just not nearly as strong. And lastly, for Bookmarks The Spot, I wanted to quickly show this next to Holo Taco's Zyler Cat Eye, which is from the birthday collection last year. That's another coppery kind of magnetic, but you can see it's just not as orangey. It's a little bit lighter and maybe cooler toned. I thought for a slightly warmer option, I can show this next to ILNP's Fawn, which was from the Fairy Forest collection. I thought the copper shimmer in that one was a lot more similar, but as you can see on the nail, these are definitely not dupes. The base in Fawn is a little bit more of a true brown as opposed to orange, and the shimmer is a little bit lighter. There's also this extra metallic kind of flaky, and it's a bit more sheer too. So the last comparison that I have is for Dimension Nails Bengal Tiger, which I had just shared in my fall favorites video. That one's just considered a true orange metallic kind of shade. So since the cracked polish was giving me more metallic vibes, I just wanted to show these side by side. If you're not using the magnetic effect whatsoever, I feel like these do have a more similar kind of finish, but the color is still a little different, where it's more orangey in Bengal Tiger. So that wraps up my swatches and comparisons of Cracked Polish's Page Turner collection. As always, I can't wait to hear what your thoughts are on this release because I really like it. At first, I was a little like, okay, you know, this is an interesting lineup of shades, but after trying them out and seeing how well they look together with like skittling, I was just so convinced. I think they're so cozy. They have great colors, perfect for fall, fantastic formulas. So I'm just generally a really big fan of this lineup. I also really do love the more like bookish theme with these. I feel like we're seeing that a lot this season with like Holo Taco's Dark Academia collection and Olive Av's upcoming fantasy collection, but I feel like they all give very different vibes, which I really appreciate. Like Holo Taco's gave me more university vibes. This lineup definitely feels more like a cozy library to me, whether it's like a public library or your home library. I really just love the different interpretations of a very similar theme. So the Page Turner collection is going to be launching on Friday, September 20th. And that's going to be alongside Cracked Polish's very first anniversary sale. That's going to be live from the 20th through the 22nd. There's going to be 30% off site-wide, and the new collection is included with that, which I really appreciate. So if you do want to pick up the collection or just anything else and you want to support me and my channel, I would greatly appreciate it if you shop through the link in my description box down below. As always, a big thank you to all of you who do support me through that. But even if you don't get anything, I hope you like the video, and of course make sure to let me know any and all thoughts that you have down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.